There's a runner called Jakob Ingebrigtsen who's changed the way our events run. Going into the World Champs, a lot of people thought that he wouldn't get beaten, there was no chance, and then
Jake Wightman with the performance of his life.
Today we chatted to Jake Wightman, double world 1500 metre medalist.
it's like chess. We make these decisions in races that you get one big move really, and then if you commit at the wrong time, you're just going to be dying in the home straight.
In 2022, he became the world champion.
For me, it was something I didn't really ever expect to have done. It was something I'd always hoped to and something I believed I could.
We chatted to Jake fresh off the 2025 World Championships in Tokyo, where he claimed second place, getting back on the podium after struggling with the last 3 years of injury.
I've always told myself that I've still got this. More than anything, it's a celebration of how much of a journey I've been through.
We uncover the question of, is it nature or is it nurture?
Both my parents were international marathon runners. Why I'm a 1500 metre runner, I don't know.
And he has an incredible mindset.
As a kid, I used to get so nervous for racing, and I used to think like, when I'm an adult, I won't have this anymore. That is not a thing. Like, the nerves are there for a reason, and they stay with you your whole career. You just get better at managing it.
Hey Jake, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Cheers for having me here.
No, honoured to have you. How was your run around Battersea this morning?
I haven't really been there much, and to be fair, 8 a.m. on a Monday morning I don't think is the peak. But yeah, there's I'm surprised how many runners were even out there then in the rain.
Yeah, let's start at the start of your running journey. What got you into running on day one?
So I always answer this with saying I probably didn't have a choice. So both my parents were international marathon runners. So my dad ran a 2:13 marathon, went to Commonwealths and Europeans. My mum ran 2:31 and went to Seoul Olympics back in '88. Why I'm a 1500 metre runner, I don't know. And I don't think I've got marathon potential here, but we were just surrounded by it. So we were taken to athletics meets as like kind of like a treat and stuff. And then we went to watch champs, like we went to watch World Champs when I was 8, stuff like that. So it was like literally absorbed and surrounded by the sport. And I started when I was 9 in primary school. And I think the best things my parents did was we wanted to start even younger than that, because there were kids at school that were doing it, and they were like, if you're going to be good, you probably want to do it for a long time. So therefore leave it as long as possible. So the humble age of 9 is when I started my journey with it, and just probably loved the fact naturally me and I've got a twin brother. So both of us started at the same time, and we were skinny little kids that happened to be good at running. So then if you have a little bit of success in school, cross countries and local stuff, it just leaves you wanting more of it. So then I'm still finding that now.
But you said you were, naturally skinny kid that was good at running. Were you good at running, do you think, because of like your genetics or that performance-driven family, or because you kind of saw running as competition rather than fun because of your parents?
So I had a nemesis in the running world from a very young age, which was my brother, because genetically we were exactly the same. So I always was like a little bit better, but my biggest fear was getting beaten by him. So I definitely think that competitive drive probably fueled me, but crushed his running journey. So I think there was a point, he'd probably say, he ran New York last week and went 2:58, and he's ran a 2:48 at London, but he could have been pretty good. But I think I was just so desperate to beat him, and he just I think wanted to find something that was his thing rather than was my thing as well. But yeah, that definitely fueled me. It was like, at times, I think I've told the story before, but I was so bothered by him beating me. There was a time where he was getting pretty close, and I hid his spikes the day before cross country, because I was like, I don't want him to race tomorrow because I think he might beat me. And then in the morning I woke up and I realised like that's probably a bit of a mental thing to do, and quite nasty really, isn't it? So then I put him back, and then I think I just beat him still. So yeah, it was probably something that drives me, is like the competitive element of it. And then yeah, just especially as a kid, you want to be good at stuff. I wasn't good enough at football. I wasn't good enough at probably other sports, but I was good at running. So therefore that was the thing that I enjoyed succeeding and doing well, which was a big driver.
I think that like that environmental factor, which is you've got this like twin who is identically genetical, means that you're forced to focus on that mental side of it and that competitive side of it.
Yeah.
Do you think like all the while you know that you have both got the best genetical footing? So then it really is the case, if you can win on that mental side, you're going to be great.
I think it's not always the genetics, but also it's the nature versus nurture, isn't it? And we had both. So I had the nature probably genetically from my parents, and then also parents that had been in the sport and knew probably what you need as a kid to carry on doing it. So we see it quite a lot in like the junior world and like the age group athletics world where kids will be doing adults training, whereas I was allowed to play every other sport until I was 18, and then would just do my races on the side and do a couple sessions maybe a week, a little bit of running, but most of the running was done on pitches in other sports. And I think by that it meant I never felt like it was intense or it was like unenjoyable. It was always fun because the racing was fun. The training on like evenings when it was cold and miserable, that wasn't as fun. So I was never forced to do that every single day. And as a result, I wasn't the best kid, but I was good enough to like have enough success that I wanted to do it still. But yeah, definitely the competition against my brother is probably a big reason I am probably the athlete I am today and probably as competitive as I am today.
But I think that the things that your parents sounds like very, very well sold, which is creating motivation in you and not forcing running on you so you don't love it. And then I think having that love that you develop by not being forced to it, playing all the other sports, and then finding that you love running, and then coupling that with like relatively knowing that there is this genetic advantage potentially that you might have. Does that lead you to having this superpower over everyone else, that you can kind of believe that you're on this path to greatness and then all you've got to do is put in the work?
I think so. Our whole family did an interview in Runner's World when I was 14 maybe, just about like a running family, which is like, it's a bit weird looking at us like the Brady Bunch or something, like some like a bunch of weirdos, as if we were just like bred to do that, but we just all enjoyed it. And then I think I said I would just love to run for like GB one day at that age, and I always believed that I could. I don't know why, even though I wasn't necessarily the best 14-year-old in the country or anywhere near, I always believed that I would like get to the point I'm at now or like close to at some point, which is like seems stupid, but I think you have to have that. And yeah, they're really good at, it's quite a lonely sport sometimes, isn't it, running? Like for everybody, going out for a run can be lonely, and that could be a good thing if you're around a lot of people. Most of the time you want that space, but as a kid and probably even now, like I love being with people. So my mum and dad always made sure that when we did train, it was at the club with our friends or at school with friends, and there was never a bit that was unenjoyable. It always felt like the bits that were tough was always enjoyable because it was a chance to see friends and stuff. And I think that probably carries through even now. But I never once thought like this is a burden or anything like that. I always thought, oh, this is a great opportunity to try and see how far I can get with this sport. And yeah, it's just been from probably the age of about 13, I was on a very nice like trajectory, and each year got better and better, and I got a bit more serious as I progressed. And then at some point you have to become a bit more of an adult, a bit more grown up, and a bit more dedicated to sport. And probably around the age of 18, that's when that started to happen.
So what did happen at 18? Were you the best in the country? Were you the best in your area?
So I went from, I think by the age of 17, 18, I grew up in Scotland, even though I sound like this. So from the age of 10, we moved to Edinburgh and I grew up there, which sometimes is tough when it's like representing Scotland at Commonwealth Games and they're like, hang on, this accent. But I'm like an adopted Scot, is how I describe it. But yeah, I was probably the best in Scotland by 18, and then probably only about, 20th in the UK. And then I went to uni and then dropped playing other sports, and then I started doing double days, doing my gym properly, and just being surrounded by people that were all pretty professional with it. And then at 19, I became European Junior Champion, which was like quite a big step up from being like 20th in the country the previous year. And then from there, that's when the doors start opening. So I got given like a Nike contract. I got a bit of funding from my federation. My uni gave me a scholarship, and then you're like, right, well, someone's now paying me to do this. So I can't muck about as much as I was in my first year of uni. So I think that was probably the hardest bit of my time around that age, was separating yourself from just being a student to then being a professional athlete, because that's what I felt like I had to become. When you're in a house of like 7 people and everyone else is living a student life, it was kind of tough to do that.
Being able to navigate that and continue to love running is presumably the necessary thing you've got to be able to do to continue to go on to greatness thereafter. You said when you were 14 you wanted to represent GB one day, and you've done that. Do you love running as much as you did then? And how's like your feeling of running changed over the years that follow that moment at 18 and uni and during a career thereafter?
I would say, rather than loving running, this sounds bad, but I love racing. The act of going for a run is something that is just part of the cause for me. So I enjoy going for a run because I know it's making me better, and I know that that's going to get me to race better by doing that. So the racing element is a bit that I really love. I think when it is your job and you've done it for so long, you take for granted just going out for a run and the reasons that other people might do it. And I think that'll be what eventually when I retire from competing, that's what I'll appreciate more, is finding that love for just being out and going for a run. But for us, a lot of the time, and like you guys, everyone will know it who's like training towards something, it's like when you're out, you're tired, you feel pretty grim, it doesn't feel easy, like that's not that enjoyable sometimes. But then the thing you'd always say is you'd always come back and feel like, actually, yeah, that felt good that it's done. And I'm like, feel a sense of achievement, accomplishment. And I still feel that from running now. And yeah, that's probably, there's moments in my career where the racing, it's when you do something you don't expect in a race. So say if you go into it and you have say for a marathon example, you're expecting to run, I don't know, 3:20 and you go and run 3:10. Like those are the bits that even we have where you surprise yourself. They're like the highest peaks you ever have. And eventually in the sport, it sounds grim, but you'll achieve like the biggest things possible. And then you kind of don't get those feelings as much. So then for me, I've had that even the last year where I've had some injuries, and then you come back and you do things that you didn't necessarily expect that season. They're the big ones that I feel like, oh, I love this. I love like surprising myself.
I think what you're describing there is what makes running great for everyone, and it's just expectations be reality.
Yeah.
And we all have the same. In reality, your expectations are probably very high. But if you beat those expectations, you feel brilliant in the same way that someone starting running might expect that they will need to walk 5 times in parkrun. And if they get round without stopping, they're over the moon. And it's like, that never changes. And then I guess like the way to keep having that happiness and joy is to try and make sure that when you're injured, that you set your expectations a bit lower.
Yeah,
you want to get back to running strong, and then you run really well, and then you're over the moon, even though it might not be where you once were. And I think like the fact that you need to do that is so brilliant to hear, and I hope for everyone listening at home, because there'll be people listening who are sad because they're injured. But like, if they are on their way back and they're not as fast as they once were, if their expectations were to set a PB instantaneously, they'll be sad. But if their expectations are, I would love to get back to running healthy and strong, and they do that, and during they're only a few minutes off, they'll be over the moon. And it's all about that, and that happiness quest doesn't change whether you're at the top of the sport or the bottom. Probably
one of the things that I benefit from the most is my outlook towards injuries. And I think for me, injuries are the easiest ways to set these goals and be positive, because the goals change so quickly. So you can achieve something within a week that you couldn't do previously. So when you have a bad injury, and for example, I've had a couple where I've been in like a boot or had surgery, and it'd be like, right, well, I can ride a bike this week and I wasn't able to do that last week, or I can squat in the gym this week and I wasn't able to do it. It's so easy to keep setting these new goals, and it moves really quick. It's harder when you're fit and running and it feels like those goals are far away. Whereas injuries, for me, it's like the worst point is when you don't know what it is and you're like really worried and panicked about it. And then you get a scan potential, you see a physio and you get diagnosed, and you're like, right, well, this is right. I'm at the bottom now, and every single step from here should be, in theory, getting better and better. And for me, that's encouraging and positive. It's not a doom and gloom thing. It's like, well, every single day, every single week is a step back towards where I want to be, which is back running and trying to do these amazing things.
Yeah, you have had a really tough, like, kind of few years, and we're so happy to see you back.
Thank you.
Before your like recent string of injury, you were kind of at the top, the peak of your game. Can you tell us about that World Champs a few years ago, and what motivated you and your thoughts going into that race?
I think it sounds bad because I've had a lot of injuries these last couple of years, but before those Worlds, I honestly, I got one injury in my whole career pretty much. So I was very lucky in that sense, or like I'd been looked after very well, is the other way to look at it. I'd like help myself with it. But yeah, I'd every year, like I was saying, since 14, I got better and better. And then I got to the point where in 2017, I won a thing called a Diamond League, which is the equivalent of, it's kind of like the Premier League of athletics. It's like a circuit that goes around and there's 10 races in a year. And that's what you race in until the champs. So I won one of them, which in theory is like, you're beating the best people in the world. So I did that. And then I was like, right, well, I feel like I can compete a bit here. In 2018, I picked up medals at Commonwealth Games and European Champs. 2019, I finished 5th in the world. And then I thought that the 2021 Olympics was going to be everything. I was like, right, well, I'm going to go here and I'm going to get a medal, and it's going to be everything I've dreamed of as a kid. And I had all this expectation on myself that was what I had to do. It was like my destiny to go and medal at these Olympic Games. And I went into it in the best shape I possibly could. And then I finished 10th. and it wasn't because I ran bad in the final. I just did everything I possibly could, but I was like, realised at that point I hadn't really done everything I needed to for that. So then there was a lot of, in my event, I don't know if people follow it, there's a few people, there's a runner called Jakob Ingebrigtsen who's changed the way our events run. So it used to be quite slow first few laps, and then it'd be a really big kick on the last lap, whereas he runs it hard from the start. So as a result, you have to be a much better 5K or 10K runner, whereas before you could be a good 800 meter runner, like better on the speed, and you'd win stuff. And I realised I hadn't done enough of that because that was just how the event was going to be. So I worked the whole of the 2021 winter and 2022 spring at getting better at the stuff I was bad at, and then going into the World Champs in Eugene in 2022, which the World Champs are every other year, and it's the same field as the Olympic Games. It's just not within the Olympic Games, so it's still trying to beat the same people. But I'd done everything I possibly could, so I had this nice calm feeling that whatever happens here, I've done everything I can, I've made the change I needed to, so it would just be I'm not good enough. And that's quite dangerous to have that mindset, because you're not tight, you're not overthinking things, you're not making mistakes. So I went into those champs, and the favourite was Jakob Ingebrigtsen, who hadn't been beaten since the Olympic Games the previous year, which he won. And a lot of people, I think, thought that he wouldn't get beaten, there was no chance. And then I managed to beat him on that day and become world champion, which for me was something I didn't really ever expect to have done. It was something I'd always hoped to and something I believed I could, but the chance of it coming off and that happening are pretty slim, aren't they? So that was pretty special.
It was incredible to watch, and I just remember your dad commentating on that race, and I just remember like crying. It was so emotional, and he was obviously crying as well. And your dad, is a commentator. He was commentating on the race, Geoff, but he was also your coach at the time. How was that? Do you think your dad was so emotional because he saw how much you put in to changing your whole running training for that race?
I think if you knew my dad, he's not an emotional guy. So and even then, if you didn't see, there was a video that Catherine Mary, who was announcing with him, filmed him, and he like shows the emotion there, and I'm like, I would never have thought that from his voice, because he doesn't really break too much. I think he says something nice about me being his son, but I think a lot of it is he's been on that journey with me. So it's not even the previous year, it's the previous 15 years or 10 years or so. And I'm hoping that, or I think a lot of the emotion was as a father rather than even as a coach with it. Like, he's achieved something he would have loved to have achieved, and he was an athlete that missed out on going to Olympic Games. So like, even me going to Olympics, I think, was a big thing for him, because that's his way of going, but as a coach. So then to have a son and an athlete you coach winning worlds and becoming world champion, I think was pretty cool for both of us. And it was nice. I don't think there's many moments in sport where you would get a scenario as unique as that. And I think that's what people resonated most from it, was if there's a parent that goes and watches their kid compete, it's like the dream would be seeing something like that. So then to be part of that moment and part of the atmosphere in the stadium was very unique, I think. And it was something that, again, I was saying about when you surprise yourself and it's that shock even that you have, like that was the most I've ever had it, because I was like, you just can't believe that you've finally done something like that. So once you cross that line, that moment where you've actually done it and the race is over and that's the result, is pretty cool.
Like, did you have any like identity crisis? What do you strive for next, or how did it go thereafter?
Very tough after, because we had the Commonwealth Games 9 days later. Which the reality of that year was the World Champs shouldn't have been that year, but then they should have been in 2021. But because the Olympics went from 2020 to 2021, the Worlds got pushed back. So then we had a Commonwealth Games and the Europeans straight afterwards. So we travelled back from Oregon to Birmingham for the Commonwealths. And I debated whether or not I should run the 1500, because I was like, this is just so much pressure. You're world champion now, going into an event where there is like no expectation other than to win,
and you're jet lagged, you're fatigued.
I just also, it's just the spark had just gone for the season, because I've achieved the biggest thing I could that year, so then everything else was just didn't feel the same. So I hated those champs after, and I was against people that were trying to do what I did. So it was like I was hungry in Eugene to make amends for my poor Tokyo Olympic Games the previous year, and then there were people at these Commonwealth Games who had a poor World Championships who were trying to make amends there, and I was aware of that, and I put myself in a position to win it, and I just felt flat the whole way through pretty much, and I came third, which I look back on that and I was almost prouder of that than the Worlds win, because I just didn't want to be there. And it's funny, he only told me a bit after, but our neighbour is a real big like athletics fan, and he told me like a year later, he was like, oh, the guy that won it was an Aussie called Ollie Hoare. And he was like, oh, I'm sorry to say, but I put money on Ollie Hoare beforehand. I don't know if it's inside trading. He said he saw me between winning worlds and going to Commonwealth. He said, I knew that you were like not up for this. So then he said, having studied it, he knew that Ollie was going to run pretty well. So then I said, well, at least it was a win-win. I hope that if I'd have won, he'd have been happy still, even if he had lost money.
Is there anything he could have said to you? He goes and places a bet. He reads your body language walking around the local street that you're like not in it. Is there anything he could have said to you to have like changed? Like if he had told you like you're going to come third because you're not in it, get up for it and you could win it, like would that have worked?
No, I just felt flat. So I remember I spoke to both Seb Coe and Steve Cram about that. Just at different points I bumped into them and I said, what should I do? Because historically they're our best ever 800 and 1500 metre runners, and I could have done the 800 and potentially got a medal in that, and it would have been a much nicer experience with less pressure. And Steve said, why would you do the 1500? Don't put yourself through that. And Seb said, why would you not want to try and be a world champion, a Commonwealth champion and a European champion? And that was the one that resonated with me the most, I think, was I would hate to have watched all these other people get medals and win, and I was doing a different event when I was the world champion at that event. So that was the thing. It was, again, the competitive fire. I was like, I have to be in there trying to do it. And I was happy with the outcome. It's just wasn't going to be the dream summer that I probably hoped for, but still I ended up getting a medal in both Worlds, Commonwealth 1500 and then European 800, which I look back on that and it's pretty cool within I don't know what it would have been, like 6 weeks to have got medals at 3 champs across different continents. So yeah,
obviously the medals are amazing, but was there also a huge like achievement in beating Ingebrigtsen in his own game, because you were like one of the first people to do it, and then you said he changed how the 1500 meters is ran, but then you kind of changed the game as well because you proved that you can beat him.
Yeah, I don't think there's like a blueprint or anything like that, but if people have never seen him race, there's years where he's been so far front throughout the majority of the year that it's like, well, how is anyone going to beat this guy? And then the reality of the way we race throughout a season is we have pacemakers in a lot of the races outside the champs, or in every race outside of the champs is pace made. And if you're the fastest one going into that race, you can decide how the pace will be delivered. So you can set the lap speed and whether you want it to go quick or not. And he would always make it quick. And if you weren't quite ready for that, you'd just be blown away by him. And then you come into a championship and then you race a heat one day, the next day you do a semi-final, then you have, for us, a day off and then you race your final. So everyone's going into that final a bit tired and there's no pacemakers to help. So it's just every man for himself, and that is always what changes it. So Jakob will still go to the front, or in those years he would still go to the front and be the pacemaker, but then it's not even a drafting thing or like saving energy by sitting behind. It's like a mental thing. You can just switch off if you're not at the front, whereas if you're setting the pace, you're having to think a lot about how quick you're running, whether you're overexerting. And I think that's probably the bit that we've capitalised on the most, is that we're not having to do that. We just sit and wait. So I won, and then the next year Josh Kerr from Britain also won in the same manner. And it's like Josh had the ability to do that regardless whether I did it or not, but I'm not sure whether seeing how I did it made a difference. But it kind of changed that he went from being unbeatable to probably this beatable character, and I don't think he's won a 15 title since.
But what you've discovered is like he had a unique way to race it, which gave him an advantage. You've worked out the solve, which presumably is going to return the style of racing back to where it was originally, because by him now trying to race in his style, which has a flaw, which you both have identified and overcome, means that he's going to surely tell him to stop going out too hard because he's having to do all the work when the pacemakers aren't there to do it for him, and it will go through this kind of weird cyclical cycle back to where it came from. People will optimize their training for it, and then there'll be one person who rolls their dice and goes down that strength. The field won't be ready, and will we not just go through this like cyclical journey through history like this?
So that's what's almost happened this year, and a lot of it was Jakob was injured majority of this year, so he didn't make it out of the heats of the Worlds. But yeah, the only solution would be he either tries to get even stronger and better at front running to be able to run away, or he gets better at what we're able to do. And I think the second is probably what he's got to try and do. But yeah, I think if people haven't watched 1500 metre running, I'm biased, but I think it's so exciting. It's like chess. So everyone's got a way they want the race to pan out, but there's 12 of you in a final that are all trying to have your own your own strategy and your own influence on it. So whatever mind or plan you go into a race, however you think it's going to happen and pan out, the majority of times it won't. So you have to be so adaptable and ready for everything. And a lot of it is about decision making. So we make these decisions in races that you get one big move really. And then if you commit at the wrong time, you're just going to be way too tired by the time the race actually gets going, or you're going to be dying in the home straight. So it's about just managing your energy and staying calm and making the smart, calculated decisions. And then luckily for me, because I made a lot of mistakes in my like long career, I now don't make too many. And then as a result, you get 100% of yourself out each race, whereas there's people that will still make little mistakes. And you could say that Jakob has made that when he's gone to the front and ran a bit too hard, but that's probably his best strategy. It's just sometimes you can't account for how good other people are or what they want to do and how good at what their strengths are. So I'll just keep trying to do what I do. But like you're saying, at some point it might come back to these slow last laps, but you never know. So you have to be able to be as good at everything as you possibly can in case.
It's absolutely fascinating. And my education of 1500 meter running has gone from 0 to now still low, but it's been fascinating. How has, like, obviously you kind of talked us through the 6 weeks that followed winning the world champs. How's the years that have followed since, and how's your running journey been thereafter?
I think you do something like winning a world title and you expect that's the level you're at. So I always use the analogy where it's like if I was a footballer, I'd have signed for Real Madrid from winning that. That would have been like the peak. And then you'd get a 3-year contract probably or something where you're guaranteed to stay at that level. Whereas in our sport, you finish a season, you have your break, and you just have to start again and build back up to that point. It's really hard. It's like you don't earn the right to stay there. You have to literally go through the humbling training of winter and getting fit or getting unfit and then building slowly back, getting fit. And for me, I had a few more opportunities from winning worlds that demanded a bit more energy and time, which was great. And I would never have not done them, but I traveled around a bit when I was training. I got a bit sick and then just had a few little problems and niggles. And I think it was the January. So I won worlds in, when was it? July. And then in the January, we were building up to another world champs in Budapest. And the benefit of winning a world title is you get a wild card for the next year. So we always have to go through trials and run a qualifying time. But because I'd already won, I was guaranteed to be at the next one. So my friends and family had booked tickets. I think there was like 20 of them had already booked to go, because like, great, we know you're going. We don't have to wait like any other year. And I was in the gym in South Africa doing these like hurdle bounds, just jumping over hurdles, which I do the whole time. And I was warming up and I just didn't feel very coordinated. I'm not the most coordinated anyway, but I just felt extra uncoordinated this day. And I was like, it'll be fine. So I went into the exercise and I just felt like I wasn't going to clear this hurdle. So I bailed out in the air and I put my foot down and put all my weight on one foot and then rolled over on my foot. And as soon as I did that, I was like, I know that I've done something bad here. And then I'd ripped a little bit of bone off my foot and then messed up a lot of the ligaments. And then I was in a boot for 6 weeks. And then from then, that was just literally, that one point is where I can pinpoint where I started this snowball of just problem after problem. And anyone that runs will get it. The most vulnerable you ever are is when you first come back from an injury, because you've not ran. Like, running gives you the robustness to tolerate training and then to be able to not get hurt again. So then I got back a little bit too quick and I got a stress fracture and tore my hamstring at the same time. So then my 2023 season was a write-off, and then you have another 2 months off running and then build back up again. And it was all fine because that was a world champs in 2023. And I was like, right, well, we have the Paris Olympic Games in 2024. So if I miss this season, that's fine. And then I had an okay start to my 2024. I was racing in May and June. And then the week before our trials to qualify for the Olympic Games, I tore my calf. So then I missed the trials for Olympics. And luckily enough, I got given a spot for the 800 rather than the 1500 because I'd ran okay over that. And I was like, well, not great. I'm not going for the event I wanted to go, but I still get to go and try and compete in Olympic Games. And then went away on camp. And then 3 weeks later, the week before the Olympic 800 heats were meant to be, I tore my hamstring in a session. And that was the most crushing because then it was 2 years in a row of no race and no championship. So that was a pretty bleak point.
And I remember it. And I remember like people saying that you were like never going to come back. Like, did you think that? Or how hard was it?
The reality of the session I tore my hamstring in before Paris was like the best session I've ever done. So I knew I was ready to compete, but what is the point if you can't make a start line. And that's the bit that kept me going. Was I did all of the training, I just didn't do the racing. So the training I was doing was as good as I ever had, but it was just always crossing this line. And to race at the level that we race at, you're always close to the red line, and it's like every now and then you go over that. But I went over it so many times at the wrong point, and that was the crushing bit. I just felt like winning a world title had exhausted almost every little ounce my body had to give. And was that just my body's way of saying like, nah, you've like drained me here, like this is it, this is all you've got. But I always felt as though I deserved to be trying and deserved to show that the hard work wasn't going to waste. So I didn't really think about it. It was always like the belief myself, even if other people didn't believe it. I knew that I thought I still had it, which is the only thing that really matters. I just hoped that that wouldn't end in a career that just fizzled out by just these constant injuries. And yeah, luckily for me, it hasn't.
And yeah, it must have been so frustrating. And at that time, you decided to change coach. Do you think that frustration added to the reason why you've said in like media that you changed coach to protect your relationship with your dad? Is that because it was so frustrating at the time, and that made it harder to have the same like coach athlete relationship and father son relationship at the same time?
If you think about how frustrating an injury is for you and how much it like rattles you, I'm sure with a lot of people, you don't feel in a good mood a lot of the time when you're injured because you want to do something, you can't do it because your body's not letting you. I had a coach and a father that was going through that at the same time. So every single time I was getting knocked back and these other injuries, it was stressful for him as well. And he was the one planning the training. So I think at points he was like, oh, like how much of this is what he was doing? How much of it is what I was doing, or just not able to tolerate? And yeah, it was tough because it was just, it creates a lot more strain on the relationship, not just as a coach, but then also it's the same person. I can't separate him being my father and my coach because it is just one person. So yeah, it was the point where I think I had knee surgery in February, and that was kind of the final straw with it, where it was just I needed to do something different to protect my body. And what my dad was great at was getting me to the best possible point, but then that was different from the age of 28 because I couldn't deal with the same training, and I can't expect him to change because that was his philosophy and how he believes I should be training, but it just wasn't having the outcome I needed. So yeah, it was tough to make that decision. Someone that coached me since I was 14 and was also my dad, it's like a bit of a tough one to make, and it was a mutual thing because I think he was as sick of it as I was, just constantly being in that cycle of injuries. So I'd moved to Manchester at the end of the 2024 season just in a hope to be closer to therapy. So that was one big decision. I thought that was the biggest decision I'd ever have to make in my career. And then the coach change probably was much bigger than that. And it would feel pretty grim now if I hadn't had a good outcome from it. But the fact that it's paid off makes me feel like they were tough at the time. But I look back, I'm like, they probably were the right things to do, however grim they were.
Yeah. So we just had the 2025 World Champs, new setup, new coach. How did that go?
It was revitalizing, I would say. So yeah, I went into it, and probably similar to the time I won in Eugene, there was no pressure on me at all. There was no expectation, but I had it in the back of my mind that I was like, I need to perform here because I've done 2 years of injuries and I've always told myself that I've still got this. Now is the time to prove, do I still have it? And I was like, if I don't, that's gutting, isn't it? I've persevered for all this time to potentially not be as good as I believe I am. So we went into the heats, and that was the most stressful, probably the most stressed I've been, and the most nervous for like a long time, because like if I get knocked out here, that is just like not worth it for these years that I've persisted, because you want to get to a final, because if you don't get to a final, you can't even challenge for a medal. So once I went through those heats and I felt good, I just looked forward to the semis, and then once I got to the semis, I looked forward to the final, and I ran okay in my semi-final, and I felt at that point, I felt like I could do something in the final. So similar to whenever I race, I'll always be on the start line with the aim to try and win it at some point, and that's like a big philosophy, is like if I'm standing on the start line, I will do something to try and win, and that's all I believed I was going to do in Tokyo. And the outcome was I was leading until, I don't know what it would have been, like 2 or 3 meters, and then somebody from a Portuguese athlete just closed very, very quick and then dipped me on the line by 200ths, which I celebrate the silver more than thinking about what could have been with that gold. But obviously I do think like, double world champion sounds quite cool. The silver doesn't quite have the same ring, but more than anything, it's a celebration of how much of a journey I've been through to get back to that point, and the real validation that I am still the athlete I believed I was, and I can still compete for these titles.
That is amazing. And what does that mean your goal is here on out? Like, what's the next goal? Is it the Olympics? Like, what do you want to achieve in the next year, in the next 5 years?
So that is the end point, I think, is the LA Olympics. So that would be what everything's building towards. And the only thing better than winning a world title would be to win an Olympic title. So that's something that I hoped I could have tried to do in Paris. And then Paris maybe would have been my last one if that had gone great, but it didn't even go, let alone great. So the LA Olympics is the end goal, but we've got a pretty exciting year next year. We have a Commonwealth Games in Glasgow and a European Championships in Birmingham. So 2 home games. Especially for me running for Scotland, they're both home ones. So that's the immediate goal. But probably taken away from the performance element, it's just to keep enjoying it. I realised that with Tokyo, I love racing still. There were points where I felt like in the season when I wasn't running as well as I wanted, I was like, do I still enjoy this? Do I still take the satisfaction from it? And Tokyo reminded me that I really do it for the racing. So I just want to stay healthy and get back on start lines. And then if I do that, that's the biggest job done, I think, and then I can go out there and try and really like enjoy the racing and show the best of myself.
I think it's brilliant that you love racing, because so many people like me, like that is so daunting, that's so scary, but I love the training side. Is it just because you have fun and maybe you don't know what's going to happen? Like you said, like so many different things could go on in that race.
I think the thing I learned pretty early on is that as a kid I used to get so nervous for racing. And I used to think like, oh, like when I'm an adult, when I'm a senior athlete, I won't have this anymore, because I've learned that like nerves, they won't be there anymore. But that is not a thing. Like the nerves are there for a reason and they stay with you your whole career. You just get better at managing it. And I don't enjoy majority of race day. Like majority of race day is horrible. You're sitting in, for us, a hotel room, waiting for your race. You're following this like strict routine that you would always be doing. It's boring. It's like overthinking what potentially could go wrong. So a lot of it is like trying to knock that out of your head and think about what could happen. So I try and just focus on it being an opportunity to do something good rather than potentially something could go wrong and all this hard work doesn't go well. And even the race, it's like, it's a lot of adrenaline, a lot of emotions within it. It's only afterwards that I'm like, I enjoy it because the result is how I wanted. And I look back, I'm like, it's pretty exciting racing, because I haven't done a marathon. Maybe I will one day, but having that many people on the street, for example, that must be exciting. Even if you don't realise it afterwards, I'm sure you look back on it and you're like, that was pretty cool. And we get the same with like a full stadium of people that are making noise. It's like pretty cool that we get to do that. And I always like was going into those worlds knowing that regardless of the outcome, I was like pretty proud and pretty excited to be back on that start line in that atmosphere. And the same probably goes for anyone that's doing their running. It's like whatever your outcome or your goal is, like you can still take more than just the end result. You can enjoy being on those streets, like being around a lot of people who are all trying to achieve the same thing. It feels like there's more to racing than just the final result. But it does make it a bit sweeter if you do achieve those goals as well.
And those nerves ultimately become the adrenaline, which is why you can race better than you can train.
I think if you didn't have them, like, you don't care enough. It's how I look at it. It's like the reason you're nervous is because you really want this to go well, because it really matters to you. And that's a good thing, isn't it? It's just channeling those nerves and that adrenaline into something positive rather than something that's crippling and debilitating.
And yeah, it's exactly that. It's scary. Like, worst case scenario, and your laps of Battersea Park and a training run don't go well, but like, no one cares. But like London Marathon for you, which is a big race, if that goes really badly, you're going to be sad. But it's like using that fear to empower you to do better and not let it cripple you.
I think as well, you were saying about the no one cares with the Battersea training runs. The reality of racing is you're the one that cares about this so much. The people around you, like, they're not going to dislike you because you don't run as well as you want to in a marathon. It's like it means a lot to you, but the people around you, they're not that bothered. It's like, I always think people really care, like the people watching us racing, how we get on, but no one cares as much as you do. So as soon as you realise that, it's all internal rather than these external pressures. It becomes a lot easier. And yeah, it just is fire, I think. Like, that's what nerves and adrenaline are. They just fire inside you. That just means that you wanna run well. But
I love that. My kind of the thing I'd love to understand, additionally to all of this, is like what a normal week, what a normal day looks like. And the reason why I ask that is that you have a life where you're obviously performing at the very highest level. I want to know what it takes to be the best. But also, you have a family that looks at running. Do you mean your whole life is running? Like, I know that you must be doing so much to recover, so much to eat well. And all of that feeds back to being the best. But do you ever spend any time painting pottery or doing something that is nothing to do with being the best? Like, what does a normal week of training look like? And do you ever stop thinking about running?
So I'd say that's probably the common theme amongst everyone that performs at like the highest level is you're not thinking about running the whole time, because that's just crippling and it's a waste of energy. So the best athletes are the ones that are thinking about it when they're training, and that's it. And then you kind of create this lifestyle that doesn't have anything that will negatively affect running. Like I live a pretty boring life. It's like everything I do is good for my running, and I don't do stuff that's necessarily bad for it. But it's not like everything is like recovery specifically. It's just stuff that isn't going to have a negative impact. And yeah, we're lucky that as a professional, I have the time of the day to give towards that recovery. I have more respect for the people that work full-time jobs and still do their training in the mornings and evenings after it. And my idea of a good time is going for a coffee with a mate and sitting there and like chatting away and stuff. And I think people think we're these robots that don't have these cravings like normal people, but you're just a normal person that I enjoy having drinks. I enjoy eating crap foods. I enjoy like a late night like everybody else, but it's just finding a time in the year that you can do that and a time you can't. And for me, that window comes at the end of a season, and then the rest of my life is dedicated towards being the best athlete I can be. But that does mean switching off. So I have at the moment, like with me and another athlete start like a coffee company. And for me, that is something that I can engage my brain towards that isn't running. It's healthy to have other things to think about. Otherwise you just overanalyze. So I let the people in my coaching setup do the analysis and the planning, and I just literally just crack on with it and just do the actual running. But we do very similar. Our structure to our week's very similar to a lot of people. Like I did 6 miles steady, for example, in Battersea Park this morning. There was a lot of people who don't run for a living who are doing that as well. There's not that many differences. We just do everything probably a little bit quicker, maybe a bit more intense, and we have a lot more time to dedicate towards it because we have to earn a living from the outcome.
That's fascinating. And I think exactly what I hoped you would say, which is that like you switch off.
Yeah.
And I think that's essential, and I think highlights to anyone also on their first marathon, you don't need to think about it all day, every day.
No.
And if you do, it probably won't help you to love it, which is the reason why you're doing so well, is because you still love your running like you did when you ditched your other sports.
Yeah.
And like that's the golden nugget that Anya has, and why Anya's phenomenal at running. And if anyone listening can find a way to be happy with it, they might not end up being the world champion, but they will achieve their running goals.
I think the thing I've always said about my running is it's just a part of my life, and it's a big part of my life, but I'm not just a runner. It's like I'm a person that has, I hope, more to offer. That I hope that we're not just these cyborgs that just run and that's all we're programmed to do. So that's why I think I've dealt well with the injuries, is because whenever I've got hurt, I'm like, well, this isn't the only thing I could possibly be doing. I enjoy doing other things on the side. So whenever I've got injured, I've never sat and just been down in the dumps and like all miserable. I've gone out and done things that I wouldn't be able to do if I was running. So for example, we went to, I think it was 2023 when I got hurt, we went to the Royal Box in Wimbledon, which was in July. I would never normally get to go to that. I'd go to friends' birthdays and weddings and stuff like that. And I have a life that I could live if I wasn't running. It's just I realised that when you are in season and you are training properly, you have to obviously commit to it. But it's just a big part of it that I hope when it finishes, because at some point I can't have this as a job forever. I have to go and do something else. And I hope I've got enough about me and enough other interests that I can enjoy doing another job, for example, and have another interest on the side, because this is just the part and the chapter of my life that I've dedicated most of my life to, but I've got more to offer, I hope, for the rest of stuff.
That is fascinating, and I have no doubt that you do.
We'll see.
We're going to segue over to Steph for our coaching tip of the week.
Today we're talking about the importance of off-season. Taking time off doesn't mean losing fitness. It means setting yourself up for future gains. The off-season lets your body and mind recharge while maintaining light movement. Yes, you'll lose some fitness, but you'll be better prepared for starting the next training block. You're able to absorb the training load more efficiently, and you'll return sharper and more motivated.
Hey guys, this episode is brought to you by the Runna app, the #1 rated running coaching service worldwide. And if you want to try the app today, use code podcast25 for 2 weeks totally for free. And please do remember to rate, follow and subscribe to us on your listening platform to help us climb the rankings and so that we can keep bringing you the most interesting and amazing guests.
Thanks for that, Steph. I'm going to bring us back with our discussion for Jake. If you could build the perfect elite athlete, but you could only choose 2 traits or conditions to give them, what would you pick to maximise their chances of success?
Oh.
So we're thinking like mindset, coach, genetics.
Okay. So I would say the majority of it wouldn't be physical things. It wouldn't be actually, because running's quite a rewarding sport in the fact you get out what you put in a lot of the time. And that's not just about how hard you work, it's about how smart you work, isn't it? And how, so I'd say number 1 surely is a coach. That number 1 is if you have the right coach who has your best interests and knows you well, then I feel like that's probably going to give you the best chance of success. And then the second probably goes in with that. And honestly, that obedience is probably one of the biggest traits. So it'd be doing what you're told. And I learned that pretty young. I think if I had a coach that I trusted and I did everything that they were telling me, I didn't miss the little things. When they told me to back off, I backed off. I didn't overtrain or sneak in anything else. I feel like that's the recipe for success, those 2 things.
So given that your dad was your coach,
Yeah.
I'm assuming that, and you value obedience and you cite it as something that led to success. I'm guessing you weren't a naughty child.
No, not in the running sense. So like, I speak about my brother I remember we used to have to go train on like a Tuesday night. Not have to. That's the wrong way to use it. We had the option to go train on a Tuesday night, but it was strongly encouraged by my dad. And I used to be like, yeah, it's class. Looking forward to going down to the track, see my mates put in like a bit of hard work. My brother would kick off about it and say, I don't want to go. And I think that there was like the difference was I would just wanted to be good. So therefore I would do whatever that meant. Whereas my brother didn't enjoy it enough to want to do that.
And was it that you wanted to be good because you got to hang out with your mates? Or do you think you wanted to be good because you knew you'd make your dad happy?
Oh, this is like a therapy session. So
I do a lot to try and impress my dad and make my dad happy. So there's nothing wrong with that, but I'm just intrigued.
There was a lot. So my dad was always very hard to impress as a kid with my running. So then if I ever did something that he would be like, well done, I'd be like, oh, I've done something pretty good there. That was a big thing for sure. And a lot of it was I just wanted to be good and I trusted that my dad knew that, how I was going to get there. So therefore I would just, everything he said, and this sounds bad, but I would always say like, if I do everything my dad sets, then if something goes wrong, it's not my fault, it's my dad's fault. So I'd alleviate liability almost from it by following what I was told. And again, if you have a coach that you believe is doing the right stuff and you just follow that, then
you can put your trust in that.
Yeah, you just put your trust in it.
You just follow it blindly.
Yeah, so they're the 2. And there's obviously a lot of little things around it. But I think if you've got the mindset that you have that trust and kind of like confidence in somebody else, I feel like that same mindset will help you in racing because you're just confident, you're more trusting that you've got to the start line in the best shape possible. There's a lot of things that filter from that.
I think it's an extremely optimistic way to look because what you're saying is that the physical body is downstream of your mindset. I mean, how you behave leads to the physical characteristics. And we're in control of how we think and how we look at the world. So do you mean anyone listening is completely in control of the physical side of things, which is, I think, a very like optimistic way to think about this rather than thinking, oh, I don't have strong enough calves, I can't do it. It's like, well, the calves are because of your mindset and how you build your calves, you know? It's like, it's not a chicken and the egg. It is literally the mindset creates the body.
Yeah, and a lot of it would be probably communication with it as well, which is like being honest with others about how stuff is going. So that would be like saying if your calves were sore, it's like not just being a trooper and being like, my calves are a bit sore, I'm just going to battle on. It's like actually being aware of that and doing something about it. So that's similar. So if you have, for example, like a coach or a physio, it's like being honest with them and speaking about how you actually are feeling, because then again, it's like they'll change something. And then if you follow that, then you'll have a good outcome. So it just makes you sound like you've got to be a goody two shoes, don't you? Just do as you're told with it. But yeah, a lot of it is just positivity. And I believe with injuries and stuff and like little niggles and problems that if you're positive towards it, that helps the healing of it, because you just, not even these like magic powers or anything like that, you just do everything you possibly can because you're a bit more motivated to get better if you're positive. So just probably a key to life, really, isn't it?
I love that. I think being happy is the key to life. Optimism.
100%.
We're going to move on to our this or that.
Okay.
So first up, I feel like the answer might be clear from what you said already, and hearing about your parents. But would you rather move on in sport and take on the challenge of a marathon next, or triathlons, of which you can pick the distance?
The marathon one's tough because do I do it properly and fully commit to it, or am I tired of hurting myself so much in this career that I'd find that too much of a challenge? But I'm the only one in my family that hasn't, so I feel like I've got to do it at some point. Yeah, I've got to do a marathon at some point. A triathlon, I'm a terrible swimmer, so I think that would put it out. I love being on the bike, which I gained that from being injured. That was probably one of the best things, but the swimming still scares me.
Nice. I won't ask you, Anya, because I think we know that you love both, as do I. So, for anyone listening at home, we've done our research, and you can correct us if we're wrong, but we think you like your hummus, and we think you like your roast dinners. So, is that wrong or right?
It's right, but I don't know what source you found that from. A nutritionist once told me I ate too much hummus.
Well, it was our 3 private detectives that followed you around for the last 3 years straight.
I actually, to be fair, I had some yesterday. Yeah,
nice.
And I had a roast dinner yesterday.
Wow. Sounds like our private detectives did their work well, and they were right. So, on that note, would you rather have hummus on every meal for the rest of your life? Like a bit of hummus, you must have it with every meal. You might stop liking hummus and probably all your other meals, or never have a roast dinner ever again.
So I went through a phase where I did have hummus every meal. So I'd have for breakfast hummus on toast, which is like, I think it's unreal. So nice.
Do you have anything like? Do you have like beetroot hummus one day and then like?
I used to like the sweet chili one, but I'm now just the purist, really.
Okay. And do you make your own hummus?
I have done.
But you're not anymore?
No, and there's a nice one you can buy called, I think it's called Ramona's. I think it's like in a yellow pot. It's really nice.
Not sponsored.
I'm not as big. I don't know how old those sauces are, and I honestly, after this, I need to find out where you got that from, because that's very niche.
I need to find out too, because I need to tell them they're doing a good job.
Yeah. But I'd rather stick in with a roast dinner, I think. I feel like that's a staple, especially when...
But so to stick in with a roast dinner, you must have it with hummus.
Is that what it is?
Well, so it's hummus with every meal.
Yeah.
Which allows you to keep having roast dinners.
Okay.
Or no roast dinners ever again, but you're allowed meals without hummus.
So do I have to have like hummus with my porridge and stuff?
Yeah.
Tough. I do feel like it would make every bit of food unenjoyable, but I would say a roast dinner is improved by hummus. Would you not agree with that? I would say that's an addition that would be quite nice.
I would say, so actually what we're offering you is like a really good thing or something that's godly awful?
Yeah, I would say, it'd be tough for every meal. Very tough for every meal.
But you're taking that option?
Probably, yeah.
and do you think you could take down some pre-race hummus and porridge?
Historically for me, hummus has actually been shocking for my stomach pre-training. So I don't know what my outcome performance-wise would be with it, but I think hummus could blend in with porridge, right? Do you think?
Yeah, I'm just imagining you doing your first ever marathon with like energy gels with hummus in them.
Yeah, squirting a
Well, actually, you wouldn't need to
hummus.
necessarily mix in the hummus with the energy gel. There could be a new brand which is just squeezy tubes of hummus.
Some would say, that hummus probably would provide quite a nice bit of energy, and I'd say like round, I don't know because I haven't done a marathon, but I'd say it'd be quite easy to take on, wouldn't it? It's got a good form.
Yeah, the texture's actually not bad.
Yeah.
And like the
So
oiliness
market
of
there.
it might help it out the tube.
I reckon we're on something
And
here, aren't we?
you've also got the flavours. You can do like a multi-pack with some sweet chilies.
Yeah, you could put caffeine in the
beetroot.
hummus. It'd be fine. You could have everything, honestly.
Caffeine in the hummus.
Yeah, I think there's a market.
You could like dehydrate it and make it like chews.
Good, yeah.
Well, actually, you could just give people chickpeas, actually.
No, I do think this life I'm going to be living, by the sounds of it, is going to really put me off it. I think it'll be overkill.
Anya, what about you? What are you picking there?
I actually love hummus too.
So
I
you're
have it
taking
most
hummus in every
days.
meal rather than
Yeah.
losing roast dinners?
Yeah.
Well, see, I controversially think roast dinners are maybe the most overrated meal in the world.
Really?
So I'll just
I think
sacrifice
that
my
that
roast
deserves your
dinners.
passport taken off you almost, doesn't it?
Well, and I have to stay
Treason.
out. I have to stay out of the UK
Yeah.
as the home of roast dinners.
Yeah.
Okay, so as in I fly out of it and then I lose my passport.
No, I reckon in that world, you can't ever spend a Sunday in the UK. You have to, on Saturday night, pack your bags, go
And what
elsewhere.
I don't like is travelling. So this is awful. I'll have roast dinners and I'll have hummus on my roast dinners, and then I can keep my
Do
passport,
Soldier
please.
on and Go for a roast, eh?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, all right. Our last this or that. If you could beat Josh Kerr or Jakob Ingebrigtsen in your next race, who would you pick?
I feel like it's quite personal, these, aren't they? To be fair, I've beaten Josh probably more. Me and Josh have probably both beaten each other a fair bit. And then Jakob I've not beaten many times. I beat him when he was 15 and I was at uni. And then I haven't beaten him that many times.
I feel like
since.
that's somewhat cheating.
Yeah, he was a kid. Well, I would say it probably, my next race, I wouldn't really mind that much. It would be about Europeans in Birmingham. If it was that, it'd be who you'd be needing to beat. And it'd probably, I'm going to say it'd be more likely to be Josh to try and win that. Because Josh is, very good athlete. Probably Josh.
Nice. I would say same to you, Anya, but you're probably not on the same start
just
lines.
beat whoever's second.
Yeah,
Nice.
You
beat
get
them
there.
both.
Our final closing question is to design your dream race. So where is it? What is the distance? What food and drink is at the finish line? And who would present you with your award?
Oh, wow. The location, it's got to be for ease of people that I want there to get there. And for a lot of my mates, they probably wouldn't travel too far. Well, they have travelled quite far, but I'd have to make it in the London Olympic Stadium.
Nice.
I thought you were about to say round your local block.
No, to be fair, I want it to be a big crowd.
Okay, nice.
A big crowd. And I would fill that with everyone I've ever met, probably.
Wait, so we can come?
Yeah, you guys are there.
Oh.
You guys could be presenting. That could have been my answer for that, couldn't it? What was the other?
Food and drink.
Food and drink.
And is it a 1,500 metre race?
Oh, it's got to be. To be fair, a 1,000 metres would be my dream. If that
Okay,
was
well,
like an
this
Olympic
is allowed.
I'll
This
do
is-
a 1,000 metre. I'll run a world record. And then, is it food and drink for me or for the whole stadium?
Up to you.
It's your race.
So one thing I would provide for everyone is probably alcohol, because I think that would make an athletics event better, is if everyone can have a few drinks.
Yeah.
As in, is that after you finish racing, or you mean before the
Oh,
start
it's got to
line?
be before. They've got to be hyped, haven't they?
Yeah.
Give 'em a bit.
As in, you mean the crowd or the athletes?
The crowd, probably the athletes. The others maybe could. I won't.
And
Maybe
the-
that should be a.
And the
something I
adjudicating
had to go.
officials. I feel like these races sometimes come to quite fine margins, and if everyone's absolutely
I'd
sloshed,
say we'll leave the starter without alcohol, probably. I don't think he should be having it. The judges, it depends on how that's going to make them. If it makes them slower on the watch and therefore a slower time, I probably wouldn't rather. But if they become a bit more twitchy, a bit more. But yeah, no, the electronic timing sadly puts a place to that. But no, I think there'd be a lot of coffee, a lot of alcohol. There'd be probably I would finish and there'd be like a Heroes van for me straight after, and I would go straight to that. Would be my perfect outcome. And then have a celebratory hummus on the mind. A celebratory
with a
hummus.
roast dinner, right?
With a roast dinner.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
can actually put hummus in a Heroes, to be fair. But I don't know, that Heroes is for everyone afterwards.
Amazing.
And then the medal will be presented by Lionel Messi, maybe.
I was almost about to write it on my iPad as like the answer, which I thought you were going to say your dad. Based on everything
that
you
would have
said.
been a nice thing to have said. I should have probably said that.
But I'm sure Leo Messi would love it.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be quite a cool event, wouldn't it? I hope people tune in for that one.
It
Yeah,
would.
I mean,
Or you guys, if Leo's not available, you guys present it.
as your dad is listening and he's really offended now.
He's on the mic. You can't get down.
Oh,
You can't
of
get
course,
down.
I see.
Fair.
Of course.
Yeah, it sounds amazing. And thank you so much for sharing like your whole story. And I've loved chatting to you.
No, thank you for having me, guys.